grew up in a fishing village till I was about 6 in southern Vietnam. And one night, my dad came home from his fishing trip and just grabbed his family and took us out to the beach, got us on the little round boat, and then took off in his fishing boat up toward north-south China Sea. I remember my uncle standing on these fishing boats with machetes and stuff to protect the boats. And there's a certain time where we would run out of fuse and there was a lot of pirates. I remember the first time we had ever drank a Coca-Cola. We were up on the roof. They bought some Coca-Cola in a can, threw it up on the roof, and it's just sprayed everywhere. And my uncle grabbed one of the can, grabbed a spoon, and gave each one of us a spoon of Coca-Cola. It felt like it was heaven because we never tasted anything that good. I ended up going to pharmacy school. And then when I graduated from pharmacy school, I became the pharmacy supervisor for Walgreens. It was like about 2008. The economy crashed. And ultimately, they figured out a way to fire me. Why did I have to go through that journey? What is it that I need to learn and get out of it? Versus saying, why did that happen to me? Then I opened up my own independent pharmacy, the time where opiate crisis was at the peak of everything. And as pharmacy and pharmacists, we're part of the problem because we dispense drugs and we dispense it without asking too many questions. My wife, Aline, she got paralyzed. That changes the whole course of everything else that was going on because at that point, I did my fellowship in functional anti-aging medicine with the Institute of Functional Medicine with the American Academy. I started to study about bioenergetic and spiritual medicine. And I realized through these pain syndrome, there got to be something else that we can help people with. And it was like, how do I apply spirituality and technology and energy healing to help people with pain?
So here we are today at Born SuperHuman. I have an incredible man that we're going to be fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time with, Dr. TK Huynh. So we're going to let you talk a little bit, Dr. TK, but I know you come from the Institute of Functional Sciences. I know you studied the pharmacy world and really got into the natural healing of the body. So before we start though, and I'm telling you guys, TK is one of the nicest people you will ever meet. And I've been fortunate enough to meet him numbers of times, and he's got a beautiful spirit. But I want you to go back in a little bit, TK, and tell us about your childhood to begin with. How did you end up doing, where did you come from, and how did you end up here today?
Wow. I was born in Vietnam and I grew up in a fishing village till I was about 6 in southern Vietnam. And one night, my dad came home from his fishing trip and just grabbed his family and took us out to the beach, got us on the little round boat, and then took off in his fishing boat up toward north-south China Sea. And we got rescued about 2 weeks later in a by a British shipping cargo container, and they brought us into the Hong Kong refugee camp, and we stayed there for a couple of years, and then we got sponsored to come to the U.S. by a church in Dallas, and then we end up in Fresno.
Okay, I've met you a few times. I had no idea. You just shocked me. Tell us a little bit. You made it sound so effortless, and it was just the way it was. I know you were only 6, and your dad had the bravery to take the risk, but also that was putting his family at risk as well, going out on the ocean, not in a bad way, in a future way that, gave you so much resilience. What was that like being on the boat? Do you remember it?
I remember everything because at that point I already kind of developed a character, personality, memories of everything that was going on. And to me, I didn't felt the danger because I was only 6, but I felt the adventure and the fun and the memory of everything that was encoded. But I remember there was a certain aspect of danger that comes with that because we would have to I remember my uncle standing on these fishing boats with machetes and stuff to protect the boats. And there's a certain time where we would run out of fuse, and they were afraid that there was a lot of pirates that goes along the way up South China Sea, and they would rob the of refugee boats that would try to escape because they know that these people who escape would try to bring whatever they have in terms of valuables. So we did have valuable, and along the way we were able to exchange for fuels and food and stuff like that. And unfortunately for us, too weak on the sea, and we didn't run out of fuel because we had enough valuable to that my parents saved up from just being villagers inside a fishing boat, saved up enough money to make that escape. And it was a big commitment. And luckily my dad was wise enough to see the future and wanted to bring us to the United States to have that future that we would never have. So
Fascinating. Was it, um, you said you spent 2 years in a refugee camp?
yes, we were in Hong Kong. We were in a refugee camp for 2 years, actually a couple of them. And we were there. You're basically secluded inside a refugee camps, and there's probably thousands of people there. And basically, you're there until your paperwork goes through in terms of someone who say, "Hey, I'm going to sponsor this family" and stuff like that.
Yes, so that brings me, what was the conditions like in that refuge? Was it healthy? Were there a lot of sickness?
There's definitely was a lot of lack of food and resource for sure. I remember when we were in one of the first refugee camp, we would had to um, throw money or jewelry and watches outside to people on the outside, and you're just depending on them to buy food or ramens or whatever canned food to throw it back in for you. And so it just built up that way where there's certain people who does that kind of transaction. And I remember the first time we had ever drank a Coca-Cola. We were up on the roof and they bought some Coca-Cola in a can, threw it up on the roof, and it fell on the roof and it's just sprayed everywhere. And my uncle grabbed one of the can, ran into one of the room, grabbed a spoon, and gave each one of us a spoon of Coca-Cola. And that was basically our first taste of Coca-Cola.
What did you think when you had that taste?
It felt like it was heaven because we never tasted anything that good. And so that was kind of like the memory that started to form, and it becomes one of those permanent thing. And I remember M&M's was almost like the same thing. The first taste of M&M, chocolate M&M's, and it was divine because you had never tasted anything like that.
Do you still have that memory? I know that now you're so much into the healthy lifestyle, and we know, sodas aren't good for us, and M&Ms. But do you still every now and again taste it just to get that memory back?
Um, I if I see it, I have flashback of the memory, but I have did cut M&Ms and soda out of my life for many years now.
No, that's amazing. So you then get sponsored by a church in Texas.
Yes,
And
yes.
what was that like coming to America?
I remember when we first got sponsored to that church, it was in Houston, and we were not used to the American food. And when we got there, I believe, like in many ways, the food was kind of rationed to our family too. And I remember we sneaking down at night to the pantry looking for um, uh, Raisin Bran Cheerios, and we would sneak whatever we can of that Raisin Bran up because we were hungry to our room to eat. And but after a while, it's like that was part of your childhood. And then we my dad found out that he had a friend here in Fresno, and he communicated with his friend, and his friend said, "Hey, there's migrant farming jobs here. You're welcome to come." And so the church was able to fly our family out here to Fresno, and we became like migrant worker and working out on the farms and the fields and stuff like that. So
really makes me understand a little bit more about you. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
the love and care that you have, and yet I look at this young boy, what, 8, probably going on 9, flying out to Fresno with a family and your father that was willing to do anything, but the resilience in life that was built up. What
Ex ex yes, exactly. It was to me it was wisdom in learning all these things, all the resilience that you see your dad try to instill into us. And I remember after many years of working in the farm, he came home with a truck one day when we were living in the Section 8 housing. He came home with a truck and a lawnmower. And he said, "This we're gonna try to get into the lawn mowing business." And my dad didn't speak any English still, and so I became his interpreter. Whatever English I had learning as I grew up, and I became like a gardener for many years, all the way into my high school until after I graduated from high school.
that makes me, I got to ask this question. As a kid, look, as a kid, we all have dreams. I wanted to be a professional footballer, soccer player, and that was all consumed. When you were a kid, what was your dream? What was it that you saw yourself going? Because I never came from a position like yours.
Growing up, I always had dream of going to summer school because every summer we would have to work in the field or work in the lawn business. And I see kids going to summer school, and it was like my dream to go to summer school. And I was like, how fun it would. Then I don't have to work and all that stuff, right? But um, and so that was part of the process. But um, learning the business and doing business teach you instill something. And so I had this dream of like one day if I created something that I could sell to one person for $1, I would make $1 million if I sell a million people $1 product. And that was like somehow it was instilled in me, and I pretty much had the entrepreneurial mindset too.
So how did you then take that from an idea? Because everyone's got ideas, and not everyone has the guts to actually take the first step. It's a dream, and slowly the dream gets further away rather than actually becomes part of our life. What was it like for you, obviously going to school, getting educated, and what was the progress for you to get into the medical world? Because that's a huge jump from, mowing lawns into there. Take us through that story.
I initially wanted to go to medical school, and I got into trouble in high school. I was not the best kid in the family, and I was not the best kid. So I got into trouble. I ended up in um, a juvenile hall for the weekend, and because of my academic work, they pretty much say, "Hey, you're such a good person. You can change your life if we give you a second chance." And so they gave me that second chance, and then I got accepted to UC Davis for college. But when I got there, I didn't realize I was too naive that the counselor told me that if I don't have money to pay for college at Davis, I won't be able to go. So I ended up not going to Davis, and I ended up going to City College. And then I met my girlfriend at that time, who's my wife now, Aline, and she got accepted to pharmacy school in Boston. And so we had a long distance relationship for about a year, and we're like, I think it's better we stay together. So I moved to Boston, and then I worked for New England, a tough medical hospital, and I was going to school there, and I was going to go to medical school. But a lot of the doctor that I work with said, TK, this is you see what we're doing, right? We spent 8 to 12 hours days in the clinics and in the hospital, and we don't make the decision. The insurance company makes the decision. So it really changed my mindset. It's like, do I want that kind of control? That's the kind of life I want or not. So I end up going to pharmacy school. And then when I graduated from pharmacy school, we moved back to Fresno and I worked really hard for Walgreens. I became the pharmacy supervisor for Walgreens for over a year. And then it was like about 2008 when the economy crashed and things really changed for all the corporation. And one of the things that they wanted to do was, hey, we need to start cutting back on employee, and how do we do that? And so one of the ways is like you start writing them up for mistakes or anything that they do, so you have enough to when you fire them, you say, hey, you already have three strike. We're gonna let you go. And basically, I told them that this is not who I am. I pretty much worked for the last 8 years with all these employees and pharmacists, and I tell them these people are like my friends, and I'm not gonna do that. So I stepped down, and ultimately they figured out a way to fire me because I called in sick one day, and they said that I abandoned my post. So they let me go, and then I opened up my own independent pharmacy. That's kind of like basically how I started my entrepreneurial um, role in terms of where I went for the last 15 years.
So let's go back just a little bit because I think you lived like 500 lives already. Pharmacy school. What do you do there? I've never really heard of pharmacy specific school. Uh,
Yes.
Explain, what's the education there?
Yeah, it's very basic education, but you're taking courses that are more concentrated toward pharmacology, drug development, statistics, how to read data, and treatments and diagnosis and stuff like that. And so once you get through the 6 year program was what I was in, and you go through that and you get your doctorate and you get to work at retail or work in hospital, work in clinical setting or work for a drug company. And I actually was gonna work I interned at GlaxoSmithKline. I
Hmm.
was gonna work as their medical information officer, but I decided that I needed a bit of extra money working in retail to support um, my child, because at that point I had a baby, our first child, and so we decided to go that route, and that's how I ended up working for Walgreens.
Yeah, fascinating. And again, I keep saying because I know you, I've met you obviously a number of times, and what a great guy. But it's fascinating how we presume we know because of what someone does today, and yet
Yes,
so much more story behind people. I've always found the greatest leaders in life, and I'm not talking about government, I'm not talking about, CEOs or certain, but the greatest leaders of humanity and life have suffered along the way and yet still found a way to continue to love.
yeah. You know what I learned through a lot of the spiritual work and mindset work was that things happen for us, not to us. And every time something happened, I always try to narrow down what was the lesson. Why did I have to go through that journey? What is it that I need to learn and get out of it versus saying, why did that happen to me? And blame and point fingers and everything, because I understand now that everything happens for a reason. And so like, we started the pharmacy, and then we were in the time where opiate crisis was at the peak of everything. And as pharmacy and pharmacists, we're part of the problem because we dispense drugs, and we dispense it without asking too many questions and stuff like that. And so we're just giving out medication that can cause a lot of addiction, a lot of cycle. But in my years, at this point, already over 10 years of experience, I didn't see people that was healing. I see people who were addicted to the drugs, that they would have to come in and get their drugs within a certain amount of days. But I realized there got to be a different way of doing this? How do we help these people in pain? And so what happened was my wife, Aline, she was at work at Target and she got paralyzed. She ended up in the emergency room in Kaiser. And that changes the whole course of everything else that was going on because at that point, I did my fellowship in functional anti-aging medicine with the Institute of Functional Medicine with the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. And I started to study about bioenergetic and spiritual medicine. And I realized through these pain syndrome, there got to be something else that we can help people with. And what is it? It's not just the drugs, it's not just the pharmacology, it's not the anatomy, but what about their mindset? What about their um, trauma, their stress that they go through? What about their spiritual belief? And so Aline ended up in the emergency room, paralyzed from the neck down. Because of my experience working at Tough, I worked in the emergency room. I pretty much understood everything that was going on. And the attending and the neurologist took her for 3 hours, did her MRI, CTs, all the lab, came back and said, hey, everything is normal. Are you sure she's not doing any drugs or anything that we didn't detect? I'm like, no, we're pharmacists and we need to be licensed. We don't jeopardize our license in any way, so we wouldn't touch any of that stuff. We don't even drink alcohol just for that reason because our license is dependent on our clear mind and the ability for us to work clearly to provide the best service for these clients. And so um, at that point, I already read Joe Dispenza, You Are the Placebo, and I already worked in bioenergetic healings with Harry Massey and Ness Health. And then in that emergency room, I told the attending that, hey, I want to pray to help heal my wife. You're welcome to stay and watch, or you're welcome to leave. So they're like, okay, that's fine. You can do whatever you want as long as you don't touch her or like do anything that would cause more harm to her. So they left and I worked on her, praying that Joe would come next to me and pray that Harry would come next to me and empower me to help heal my wife. And I work on her energetic system along her spine and all this stuff. And within 5 hours, we walked out of that emergency room. And it was like amazing. I saw her toe and her finger started to move after about 4 hours. That gave me more hope to work on her more. And what happened was she just sat up. We pulled out her Foley. She went to the restroom, and the nurse and the doctor came in. She was not on the gurney, and they're like, "Hey, where's your wife?" And she walked out of the restroom, and so I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna go home." Because I worked in the hospital enough that I was afraid that we get admitted, there might be medical error or infection, and then things go into decline. So I believe enough at that point that we were on the right track and that we can do everything ourselves in terms of the healing process because we had enough technology, enough bioenergetic modalities at home to take care of these things along with supplements and nutrition. So that really gave me a feeling like, okay, if that happened in that moment, what was the lesson that I need to take out of it? And it was like, how do I apply spirituality and technology and energy healing to help people with pain? So I work close with Nest Health, and I started investing with Nest Health in terms of their company. So I have the proprietary right to use Nest technology, and then I use that technology to encode information, a journey into the pain cream that we have. And the whole premise behind that was like, if we can take people through a journey to help them get grounded and help them let go of all that trauma, all that stress, all that anxiety that they hold on to, we can help them move forward and what we call a liberation, a letting go process of everything that they hold on and help them find peace and love and joy in their heart and their mind, where we take them away from a state of fight and flight into a state of peace, then their mind resets their pain pathway, reset the signaling pathway, reset their body energy and their frequency into a different vibration. And so through that, that was like kind of like taking us through that journey of like of getting out of the pharmacy.
Amazing that I know there's a lot of people in there that believe in um, the natural healing medicine, especially if they're faith-based, right? Because obviously that's part of their spiritual makeup. How
Yes.
how important is it for somebody to believe in it? Because if they don't believe, what's the chance of it happening?
The mindset, the belief is one of the biggest things that you can do to program your body. Like Dr. David Hawkins' teaching, where he explains that certain level, let's say like anxiety, fear, is a low vibration level where you could have a lot of disease states, cancer, pain, and stuff like that. And at this level, and then if you go up to a level where you break what he would call the 200 level of vibration, then you go into a level of courage and moving forward. And at this level, your body start to change your belief in terms of how you heal, your programming of your cells, your energy system will start to change. And then you can get into a level of love, peace, and joy, where it's like the 400, like 425, the 524 vibration and the 600 vibration. And when you combine these, you become a level of bliss. And in this level of bliss, your body has a lot of that placebo effect healing that kicks in. And so it's really how do we program our body and our energy system and our mindset to to go through that healing process. And intention has everything to do with that. Believing in whoever God you believe in, believing in the divine, your spiritual guide, your God, to come and help you. Because at a soul level, in many ways, we are born with this capability. We are born with this ability to heal ourselves. Our body is so divine that we have the ability to do that. And then everything that we do is all what we would call a permission slip. The permission slip for our body to heal, that placebo effect. So many people heal at a miraculous event, at a miracle rate, and it was because they believe in themselves.
Yeah, that's how I started Born Superhuman. I believe we're all born superhuman, and then over time, we're desensitized to our own power. We're put into boxes. We're told what we should think, and if we don't believe, then we're wrong. And part of that is to give up on our own power. And you talked about it earlier, Dr. TK, where you said you're at the pharmacy, you were just giving people drugs, we weren't healing them. And then people become dependent and think that's what they need. It's a fascinating story. So how do you achieve that 600, 524, 400? How do you achieve those vibrations?
Through prayer, meditation, finding that calmness, that peace to be in touch with yourself. And so, let's say for people who meditate or people who pray, it's a lot easier for them to get into that state to raise their vibration because fear, anxiety, and scarcity and jealousy will lower your vibration. And a lot of practitioners can do this through muscle testing, or a lot of practitioners can use like pendulums and stuff like that to help check their energy, or Reiki master, Qigong master. They have the ability to tune in to read the feel of the energy of the people, or their chakras, or their meridians, or their biofields and stuff like that. But the best way is to many way through meditation, prayer, decalcifying our pineal gland, if you believe in that, those kind of things, and bring ourselves to a higher level. And the level that you want is love, peace, and joy. That's where that bliss is. And if you live in that state, then everything that comes and you realize, oh, where is that love, peace, and joy that I can take out of this situation versus saying, you know what? I'm scared. I'm in fear. I have anxiety of the future and everything that's going on. I'm stressed out. And when you're stressed out, your body can't raise that vibration.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think there's so many people that I've met that are like, it's you're crazy. You know, when we talk about the ability to self-help, the fact that we're born to heal the vibrations that you're talking about, the meditation, because they've been brought up a certain way. But I found there's always a tipping point when they get to that moment that is so much suffering, they have no other option because nothing else is working. And I've met so many people that have gone through that moment of not believing, but the moment that they invest into themselves with that calm you're talking about, the joy, the meditation, a sense of freedom, even though you're suffering, is where you first start climbing out of the hole. What do you have any specific story that comes to mind? Obviously, your wife's story is the first and most powerful. What about someone that didn't believe? Have you had that?
I I have encountered when I was in the pharmacy that I counsel so many thousands of women because my specialty was in endocrinology, in bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And we own independent compounding pharmacy. And a lot of time it was just about how stressed they are, everything that's going on in their life, their work, their fear, their anxiety. And you start counseling them and talking to them about these, digging deep into their life history, their childhood issues, the trauma that they hold on to. And they hold on to that and it affects their energy in so many ways, and it affects their immune system. It affects their adrenal gland that produces their cortisol, their ability to deal with being more resilient to stress, right? And so by replacing their hormones through bioidentical hormone, we were able to help them. But what I also understood was when they felt that they are understood, they because a lot of time they have that broken communication barrier with their spouse or their loved one, and they carry all the stress because they didn't feel understand. But when they came in and I looked at their lab, I can say, hey, this is what's going on. You have this emotional thing that might be going on that's causing this. And this could be like something that happened for a long time already because I could see your cortisol in your adrenal gland and your level are very depleted. Or I could see it revert and all that stuff. And so by digging into what the stress is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it psychological? Or is it spiritual? And you can dig into these things and really find out what is going on to help them. And so from that, I really dive into the belief that the body have the ability to heal itself and through my wife's situation. But um, what really astonished me was very recently, probably about 8 months ago, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it's her second recurrence. She had breast cancer probably about 20 years ago. And through talking to her, digging deep into what is going on, was that Dr. Raymond Rife work, he found that a lot of cancer has to do with heavy metal issues and had to do with psycho-emotional issue. And for example, my mother-in-law situation was about grief. She was holding in the grief, the energy of that grief, and she couldn't let it go. And that energy of that grief built inside her heart, and that manifested through her lung and her breast. And it started to um, go into stage 2 breast cancer. And through working with bioenergetics technology, prayers, um, working with her on digging deep into that grief and letting it go and all that stuff. In we had a time frame of about 2 months. And by the time she went in for her breast surgery, they opened her up and the cancer was not there. It just disappeared. And we believe that the interference of everything that was going on, we really dig in and helped her let go of that. And it just gone. And they said, well, you don't have cancer anymore. Your cancer marker is not even there. So when they first biopsy it, they said that it was cancer through biopsy too, and CT scans and all that stuff. And so um, we did a lot of modalities where we had all the grandkids in the family and her kids. We all did FaceTime like 2, 3 times a week where we pray for her. We pray through affirmation. We pray that she has the ability to let go of what is she's holding on to and find that state of peace. And in that state of peace, I believe that's where she started to heal because she found that love and let that grief go. So,
Yeah, it's again, my girlfriend got diagnosed with MS
mm,
and had a miraculous recovery from the relapse that she had gone through,
mhm.
realizing that it was the stress in her life that
Yeah,
actually, for lack of a better word, activated. But talking, and so I'm a big believer in our own actions that we take in not having to rely on a drug to fix us and letting everybody else do the work, but actually investing back into our own character, our own soul. But I was at a science lab about 2, 3 weeks ago, and a doctor was being tested as part of this system that we were looking at. And he was having some problems. He was close to type 3 diabetes, hadn't quite hit there yet.
mhm.
But through this research they did, Dr. TK, it was fascinating because they tracked back the problems for his physical health actually went back to childhood trauma. And here's a doctor who had no idea. But once the testing was being done, we could see what parts of the brain were consuming the energy. And when you start putting the different parts of the brain together to consume and you understand what's the action behind it, it really supported what you're saying so much that our past, our epigenetics, our upbringing, if we don't find peace with it, it will eventually take us down.
Yeah,
But let's jump on a little bit because I know that with the endocrinology and we start thinking about the hypothalamus and
yes.
the control center, tell us more about how that works with our body.
Yeah. So basically, our fight and flight system controls everything. And our adrenal gland that sits on top of our kidney has to control through the brain to produce cortisol. And that cortisol is dependent on how much cholesterol we have. I will come back to that because that's lowering our cholesterol is detrimental in terms of how we can deal with stress. So the adrenal gland in the morning supposed to produce higher level of cortisol, what we call morning AM cortisol. At this higher level, we get up, we're full of energy, and then we can deal with everything that goes along the day. And throughout the day, in the evening, that stress level of cortisol start to go down and and then we can sleep and the melatonin goes up so we get that full sleep cycle and stress cycle. But when, like for example, teacher, when we tested teacher through salivary cortisol testing, we found that our first responders along with our teacher are the people, the population that has the worst level of cortisol in terms of how they deal with stress. Because being a teacher, they get 20, 30, 40 kids that are individual personality coming in at them on a daily basis. And they get all these assignments and how do I mentally challenge this kid? How do I deal with this attitude and personality? And over years of practice, they get stressed out and their adrenal gland, what sometimes termed as adrenal fatigue, what basically is hypocortisolism, is their adrenal gland just burn out. And they say, you know what, I'm tired. I'm not producing any more cortisol. And then their level drop. When their level of cortisol drop, they have high autoimmune issue, they have high inflammation issue, they have low immune system. So it's a lot easier for them to get sick. And their body will start to attack themselves because it's a whole inflammatory cascade. And as we all know, that inflammation, chronic microinflammation is one of the biggest costs to many disease states. And so if we could somehow control the adrenal system, control the inflammatory cascade, then we can help prevent or minimize many of these disease and cancer in these people. And so how do we become more resilient, right? So that would be the ultimate question. But going back to cholesterol, what happened in our drug society is that every time the American Heart Association try to lower your cholesterol level so that way they can put you on more cholesterol medication, they're doing a disservice to your body because we need cholesterol as the mother hormone to produce cortisol. But when we're lowering our cholesterol, we can't produce enough cortisol. We can't produce enough testosterone, estrogen, progesterone to modulate our hormonal response and our stress response, to modulate our memories and stuff. Then we have higher population of Alzheimer, Parkinson, many disease state because we need that cholesterol. So many times eating a lot of fat is actually a good thing for you. Good fat anyway, good saturated fat. So that way you have enough of this cholesterol to make pregnenolone and then make all the rest of these hormones through that cascade.
Yeah, I was looking at some studies recently where in the old days, a cholesterol of 330 was like a good cholesterol. And suddenly it went down to over 250, and then it went down to over 180 was a problem.
Yeah,
But we know that cholesterol is part of the healing process in the body.
exactly. Yes.
And your brain has a certain percentage of fat in it as well for it to be able to function properly. And
Yes.
I agree with you 100%. The pharmaceutical industry started cutting cholesterol because then you'd need more drugs. And if you look back in the days when people had a 330 cholesterol, there was a lot less disease. There was a lot less mental disorders. You
Yes.
have the stress on the body. So, because I read an article that you wrote just recently about cholesterol and how important it is to not go under a certain number. Is there a perfect number for cholesterol? Is this something that's just very specific for each person?
I would say your total cholesterol should be in the 300 at least. That's where the optimal level is. But really, when you start to break down cholesterol, it's all these little part aspects you need to understand. So you definitely don't want like you want a balance of HDL versus LDL. You don't want like high triglyceride because that tell you there's something going on with your liver. So it's very specific, but the overall idea to take home is you want a good cholesterol level. You don't want to suppress your cholesterol level so much that it's going to lead to many issues.
Explain the difference between HDL and LDL because we know there's good cholesterol and bad, and I think it sometimes gets convoluted by a doctor saying you just need to take this and you got bad HDL. So explain that a little bit more.
Yes, so I think probably the best way is the ratio of balance of HDL and LDL. So HDL is your high density lipoprotein versus your LDL, which is the low density lipoprotein. And what they found is having higher level of HDL really help balance out and prevent you from many of these disease states in cardiovascular disease. So that's why there was a huge promotion in drinking fish oil because fish oil give you higher level of HDL, which is the good cholesterol. And when you add them together, you want that basically over 300 level. So
So that moves me on to within the seven pillars I have, number two is hydration. Of the seven pillars of natural health, for
yeah,
me, number one is oxygen. because if we don't have oxygen, we won't be.
Yeah, that's right.
But number two is hydrogen. Now, this is how we first met, and I've got it here.
Awesome.
I drink this. I take this to the gym with me every day. I was just in Las Vegas for a business meeting, and uh, took 6 sachets with me to make sure that I have it. Explain to me the importance of hydrogen, and then how did you create this mind-body matrix water? Because I know there's more to it than just hydrogen base. So go into that. It's fascinating.
Yes. Well, it was during COVID, and we are what we call burners. We go to Burning Man, and so in 2021, Burning Man suddenly shut down because of the whole COVID pandemic issue. And our burner group decided, hey, we're just gonna have a private meeting in Santa Fe. And in Santa Fe, there are many activities and options that you can do. And one of that activity was um, doing a spiritual journey. That spiritual journey has to do with um, taking bufo. Bufo is 5-MODMT. It's very similar to ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is the plant medicine that take you through that spiritual journey. If you use it right to help you as a teacher to help you with whatever spiritual lesson that you need to go through or deal with some of the trauma that you may hold on to. That's what some people would use it for, or just to see the universe in a different light, right? And my wife and I um, decided that we're going to do the 5-MODMT, which is bufo, which is the toxin of the toll, generally in South America or New Mexico or Arizona area. And that generally should last maybe 15 minutes to 45 minutes versus ayahuasca lasting maybe 8 to 12 hours in terms of the journey that you would have to go through, the medication being inside your system.
Sure.
And we did that, and basically it was two very different experience for both of us. And Aline took her dose first, and she went in, and I was gonna go probably 5, 10 minutes right after her. But before I went, I can hear her going in already, and she was talking to her dad. And I'm like, that's very strange because I know that her dad passed away. And so I was a little concerned. And so I took my first puff. Usually that would take you in, but I think I was over concerned. So the medication didn't really affect me. So they came and gave me another puff, and I came in, and everything just become crystal. And inside that deep state, somewhere along the way, I hear a voice. And my question going in was, what is my sole purpose here on this earth in this lifetime? Many of us ask that, right? What is it? Why are we born? What are we doing here? And so that was my question. And the voice said, it's not your time yet. You need to be with your wife. She needs you. And so within seconds, my neck and my back felt like it was on flame. And all that medication just burned up. And they're like, hey, what's going on? You need a third puff? And I'm like, no, I'm the voice said, the divine said, I shouldn't be here yet. So I came in and sat with her. But what we found out was because of the trauma that she was holding on to of losing her dad. Um, she carried that and nobody knew about it.
Mm.
I was with her for 30 years and I did not know about it. Her family did not know about it. That she was the one at the age of 5, she found her dad who passed away. And she felt that she was helpless, that she couldn't help him. So she ran and hid. And what happened was for the next 2 weeks, somehow, immediately in that session, somehow her portal opened up. And for that next 2 weeks, she has this very low vibrational entity that has came through her, and it would show up. And many way we thought it was we thought that she wasn't detoxing the medication properly, and so she would have voices coming through her, and it was a very distinct male who somehow experienced the love that we have for each other and felt that attachment of that love. And somehow this male entity took its own life because it lost the love and the hope that it had, and felt the love that she had, because we we went through and talked to this entity. And we in the next 2 days, I went in that journey and guide her through, and I saw the entity, and I was fighting with the entity and everything else in that realm, wherever that was. And we're like, okay, this is not a good situation. We need to leave Santa Fe. So we drove to like um Pasadena, where our friend is, who's a Qigong master, and he had a preacher there helping us. But basically, what happened was this entity wanted the love that she had for me, and it wanted to experience what that was like. And so that's why it took a part of her. And then, um, but I also had a message from the two doctors I was giving the medication, say, hey, we got a message that you need to go. This was when we were still in Santa Fe, and that we're gonna give you the medication the next day. So I met them in the prayer room, and I did my own journey. And in that journey, it brought me back to the same situation where I looked down at my heart, and that voice said, I asked the voice, why is my heart so close? I can't felt the love that I am I need to open up anymore. And the voice said, well, you need to learn how to open up. You need to learn how to let go of what you're holding on to. And what does that letting go process look like? I asked. He said, you need to cry. You need to learn how to cry and let go. And so I said, I don't know how to cry. And so my friend who was a doctor who went in that journey with me to help guide me, um, took my pain and my fear that I was holding on to. I felt her hand coming in through my body, taking that pain away. And she felt the pain I was holding on to, and she started crying for me. And in that moment, I connected that I have a friend that was willing to cry for me and take all my pain. And I felt the pain that she was going through that I was holding on to. And that's when I opened up and I started to cry in that journey. And that's when I learned what love is. It truly is. And so, and then it said, okay, this is a preview of your journey here on Earth. This is the weird part. It shows that I I was somehow re reincarnated here on Earth, or my lifetime here on Earth in this incarnation was that my job is to help spread love to humanity. And that was part of the lesson that I needed to learn, how to love. And so it gave me all these idea, like how do we give love in the simplest way, so that way people can radiate and vibrate that and raise their own vibration. And it was because during COVID, there was so much low vibration in terms of the separation of culture, separation of family unit. Grandpas, grandma can't see their kids. People were divided in terms of like, hey, you should be vaccinated versus, oh, you shouldn't be vaccinated and all this stuff because it's experimental drugs and all this. And so there was a lot of separation during that time. And how do we give love to the world when the world needed the most? And that was part of my lesson of going through there and learning that my wife lesson was about the loss of love, how someone can take their life because they didn't have that love, they didn't have that hope. And so the polarity of the two really balance these things out in terms of how we learn these lessons. And so the end of the story was that we were able to find someone, a Chinese mystic who is extremely powerful. I have never met anyone that powerful before, was able to help her and did ceremonies and stuff like that to extricate this entity out of her. And so that happened. And it took us about 6 months to integrate and everything that was going on because there was a lot of trauma that she went through. And even for me, it was like opening up my eye and opening up to us to a whole different world. Now we're living, we're seeing that spiritual world that we have never experienced before. And so it really honed in on, okay, like all these things that's going on, there's this spiritual side of everything else that happens. Um, how do we hone into our belief system? How do we open up our eye to see all these things? And so we're like, okay, if our purpose here on earth as a journey together as our husband and wife, and we're supposed to help spread love to humanity, how do we do this? And through bioenergetic teaching, through a lot of the work that are out there, a lot of the spiritual healers, um, Bruce Lipton's work, Glenn McTaggart's work, Joe Dispenza's work, Dr. David Hawkins, and stuff like that. But we know that if we can help raise people vibration, changes the what we call the morphogenetic field, the vibration of the community, the vibration of the country, the world, we can change the whole vibration mindset of everything else. So if we were to embed love, peace, and joy, that form of bliss into the water, then we can help change the vibration of anyone who drinks the water. And therefore we could spread love and really complete our journey in this lifetime. And adding molecular hydrogen into the water by so we would embed information, resonance, and frequency into the water, but then we add hydrogen as the powerful antioxidant to help your body, help your immune system, help you modulate your stress response, help you deal with inflammation and stuff like that. We could truly change um, how people deal with everything that is going on. That's a long story, but
No, it's fascinating. Again, I use the word fascinating a lot, and the reason being is I'm so curious. And I think you got to have a passion for being curious to be able to both enhance your life and find out better things and at the same time help others as well. Um, I know when I've seen your water down at different conventions or I talk to people that've taken you, they all love it.
yes.
What is it that makes your water so special in because it's not just the water. I know hydration and hydrogen and the molecular level of water, how it can be altered or changed and corrupted as well. What is it about your water that seems to bring so much? Just people love it.
Yeah, our water is not just processed filtered water. There's a lot of spiritual work and bioenergetic work and technology that goes into the water. The water is in many ways enhanced spiritually, energetically through technology, through sacred geometric work and stuff like that. And so our office has a lot of sacred geometry. And then we charge these quartz crystals and then we put them in tube chamber that goes into our quantum light machine. and we charge the crystal so that way intentionally it's holding the resonance of the journey that we want the water to have. But by running the water through these charged crystal, we restructure the structure of the water. So in many way, it holds the energy and the information a lot better than just running water through a pipe. And then these um, has different form of spirals to go through. And then the water, in many way, when you drink it, the consistency of the water, the coherent coefficient is a lot thicker. And the water, in many ways, tastes a little bit sweeter than your regular filter or tap water, and it'll taste a little bit thicker. But not only that, when we're pressurizing the hydrogen gas into the water, we're making what would be considered easy zone, easy water through Dr. Pollock's work on easy water. It's a different stage of, like, he would call it the fourth phase of water. And we use infrared and red light to change the structure of the water while we're embedding codes and information into the water. So what code and information do we put in there? So between the two, pressurized hydrogen tank, while it's getting electrolyzed with hydrogen and getting supersaturated through the pressurization system, it goes through a very powerful Tesla coil. And in that Tesla coil, there is red light that we embed photons information into the water. And that light and information has to do with grounding, because it's so important for us to get into that concept of grounding when we ground it, meaning that if we get in touch with the earth, the resonance of Schumann's, that is the electromagnetic field, the heartbeat of earth as a whole. There's so many positive studies through the grounding effect in terms of how it just helps people sleep better. It helps reduces inflammation in many ways. But just pure intention of putting that grounding effect resonant in there. And then we go through putting source energy in terms of like raising the energy of the water. And then we raise the consciousness of the water, turning it into what we call liquid light. And in that liquid light is encoded with information of love, peace, and joy. And I would go through every couple hours, I would change the program and run these frequency and resonant in it. And then in there, the water become very high in terms of energy profile. So when we scientifically under conventional science, it's really hard to show or prove of this, right? But through biogeometric work and bioproton scan, you can see um, BioWell is one of the company that they have this machine that they can look at your body's auras and the energetic profile. And we can see there's a huge difference between drinking the water before and drinking the water after in terms of that aura uh, breakout and property of the aura. And that's how they can use that. But recently, we met some people who are in the conscious water group, and they purchased our water. They heard about the water, they purchased the water, and they tested, and then they reached out. They said, hey, we use biogeometry method of measuring the energy of your water. And we compared it. So on the call, they show me what they were doing. They compare tap water and the energy profile of just tap water that has been filtered, and then they compare it to their restructured water, and then they compare it to our water. And the tap water was about a +3 in terms of how good that water is for the body. And then their structured water that they said this is probably the best that they have done goes up to about 8. And then when they test our water, it goes up 5 to the 10th of the level off of that scale. So it went off the scale, but it went off 5 times of that scale. And they were just amazed at that they have never seen that, and they were very happy to reach out and just to let me know that that's what they're doing. And so um, what they're doing is they're using a water to put into the the Atlantic Ocean and the watersheds wherever they travel to help change the resonance and the frequency of the water, kind of like using it as the mother water. But that's just the spiritual stuff that they're doing, and we're happy to hear that they're using a water to help change the source of the water.
So with the water, and say someone's getting it for the first time, how long would they have to be using the water to feel an effect? And what is the effect that they'd feel?
Um, Here's the extreme. Let's say at one of the event, somebody drank five of those because they were thirsty. They drank five, and um, his he his testimonial was like, "Hey, I drink five of this hydrogen water, and I'm high as a kite." He's like, "I'm walking on cloud nine right now." That's the extreme of that, right? You would like drink so much that you would somehow get a hydrogen high in some way. And but for some people who are hydrogen depleted, they would feel it after the first bag of drinking the water. And the reason is just like serotonin is supposed to be produced by our guts, and that make us happy, right?
Mm.
But hydrogen is also supposed to be produced by our gut through fermentation of the bacteria, the good bacteria in our gut. But if we have so many gut issues through pesticides and gut dysbiosis and stuff like that, our gut is messed up, then we're not producing enough hydrogen. And hydrogen is, just like you said, like oxygen, is so crucial to many process in enzymatic and physiology of the body that you need the right amount of hydrogen to create a lot of these mechanisms to work properly. But when your gut is messed up and you're not producing enough hydrogen, then a lot of your bodily process and enzymes are not working. So therefore, it's easy for you to be tired. It's easy for you to be sluggish. It's easy for you to have foggy thinking and stuff like that. And you're not making enough ATP through the Krebs cycle because ATP is one of the key molecule that is needed to make ATP in that Krebs cycle, which is our energy units, right? So just like NADH is a very popular supplement, NADH help donate hydrogen
Right.
to the Krebs cycle. And so that way, when people take NADH, they feel good. It's really like a longevity molecule. And so you're now giving your body that free hydrogen, and it works so much faster because hydrogen is the smallest molecule on the elemental chart. And because it's so small, it has the ability to penetrate through the cell wall and absorb right through. And it works so much quicker. But what hydrogen can also do is can pass through the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is that barrier in our brain that stops certain things from going through because you don't want everything to go directly into the brain. It might not be good, like heavy metals and stuff like that, right? But if you have hydrogen that can go through, now the brain is more energized. So we see that a lot of people who drink hydrogen water, their mind clear out in terms of like, let's say, foggy thinking, right? They're feeling cloudy from having COVID, like long COVID symptom type of deal. But when they drink the hydrogen water, they feel so much better because it's helping them think, helping them have a clearer mind.
So with that, and would you say the hydrogen is the biggest impact within your water? Because it seems to me more that it's like the love energy that you've put in there, the um, consciousness, I would say, into the water of the healing potential. Is there one that's more powerful than the other, or is it just the complete combination?
Um, I believe it's the complete combination of everything. And We know that hydrogen acts as a powerful antioxidant against free radical, against oxidative stress. And in that state, drinking it long term will help balance out your microinflammation. And we talked about inflammation as really the underlying causes of many disease states. So that's a big part of it. But through spiritual work and testing that we have given to like Reiki master, Qigong master, mystics, they have all test our water through their energetic field testing. They felt a huge difference in terms of the vibration of that water, that energy field that's radiating through that water. And they're like, well, this is very powerful, very amazing. And they can feel that it is the higher vibration of these resonance and frequency that they're feeling versus the lower one. Because I have given them one water bag that hasn't been charged versus water bag that has been encoded. And I give them like I mark it and I give it to them. Hey, which one resonate better for you? And they have many of them have picked up that it was the one that has been charged that they feel of the energy. And
Difference.
that's more on a spiritual level, but I believe everything has to do with the intention. Um, Going back to permission slip, every supplements, every modality that we use, what would be called really is a permission slip for our body, for that intention for our body to heal, for that programming to happen. If
Mm.
we use the right intention, then we can start healing ourselves. Even our water then would be a permission slip.
Right.
We do not need anything to heal. We only need this and this to get into that state to heal. So,
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that as well. It's energy. You're either getting it added to you or it's getting sucked out of you. And
yes.
that's where the environment, and starting with the environment that you're talking about. I know you have other products as well. Um, is it the same kind of setup within that as far as the quality of putting the ingredients together and having that energy source, or is there a different structure compared to the water?
The programming is different. And let's say for our bioenergetic pain cream, our whole premise on this was we go through trauma, we go through events that are sudden, and in that sudden event, epinephrine, norepinephrine, all these adrenaline comes up. We deal with it, and then we're supposed to come back down and start that healing process, right? Going back into that parasympathetic tone now that we got out of that fight and flight state. But if we don't have the way to deal with this trauma in terms of communicating it, letting it go, letting it shit, or what we call like let that shit go, right?
Right.
So if we don't have a way to deal with a resolution, a solution to it, and we hold on to that, that becomes the energetic trigger. So a lot of people, that energetic trigger would be, hey, I I can't solve this. I don't know how to solve this. I don't have a solution for this. So consciously, the mind can't deal with that.
Mm.
So what does it do? It get buried in the subconscious mind. It get buried as energy and information that what we call energetic blockage in the meridians, the organs, or the auras, or the field, the etheric field. And these becomes energy that then can manifest into different disease states that are many times, according to Lewis Hay, organs and system can be representative of the emotion that is going on. And so let's say I got into a situation where I don't have a solution for that. I bury that information, that trauma, and then my conscious mind can't deal with it. Now I have to go to alcohol I had to go to drugs because it's giving me an escape mechanism, right? Or the body manifests a disease state, a cancer or pain. And so when we see a lot of people who have chronic pain, and this pain is in many ways a manifestation of a trauma or a problem or an emotional psychological issue that don't have a solution for. And so when we understood that, what we theorized was that if we put what we call coherence, energy, information of a journey into the cream, we embed the cream like it's a hard drive. And in that hard drive, like your computer hard drive, it's information that is held in there. We don't see it, we don't hear it, but it's there. And you need that computer chip to interpret that information. So let's say the cream is carrying that frequency and vibration, and your body, your heart is that computer chip. And you take that information and that journey and you apply it over your heart and the back of your neck. Your body understands the energy and that vibration and that frequency, that journey that it has to go through of letting go. Whatever you're holding on to, you let go and you find that peace and that love. And then that's where you start to let go and reinterpret the pain signal. And you changes the whole outcome of how your mind interpret the pain scale, how your body interpret the pain cascade of shooting out all that pain signal. And so when we found that placing the cream with that journey and that information over the heart was one of the best way. And then people can apply the cream to wherever the aches is because of the grounding effect. We bring the grounding effect back into the body. And when we ground the area, we calm down the physical aspect of that pain signal. So it's a it's a very um, strange way, but it works. And we have seen so many acute changes in people how they're dealing with this. And I like early on, one of the biggest testimony I had was someone who bought the cream and they were using it for their dad for his terminal cancer. And he was in so much pain that he was not able to even take the medication that they gave him. These are morphine and Oxycontin and stuff like that. But he was still suffering from that pain. And when they follow the instruction and they apply it, he was able to find somewhere along the way, he was able to find peace in himself that he was able to process the pain and almost suddenly he was able to use the medication properly and reduce that and was able to go through the rest of his journey in his life. And it was such a beautiful journey that it was one of those things like, wow, I it was nice to hear because you help somebody.
And again, that goes back to your early days in the pharmacy where you didn't feel like you were helping somebody actually get through the journey. You're just keeping them on the journey. Now you take
Exactly.
a whole new journey.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest thing people are suffering with in this world right now?
Self-doubt. They uh they don't believe in themselves enough. That brings us back to the belief, right? Um, when we go through situation, we go through life, we doubt our ability, we doubt our capability in terms of what we can do, how we can help others, and we doubt ourselves into tricking ourselves, not believing in who we are and not believing that we have the ability to help ourselves.
Mm.
And so that would changes everything if we live in a life in a situation where we believe in ourselves and we believe in our body to heal, to have the ability, the capability that we were born with to be able to do everything ourselves.
So you've had this incredible journey, starting as this young boy in Vietnam, going on a long boat trip, spending years in a refugee camp, transferring to Houston, off to Fresno, going through life-changing moments like with your wife, Lean, with, her paralysis and turn. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
I could see myself that this would be we have talked about this, and this is our journey now of creating this beautiful water that we can help spread love to humanity. And that would be everything else that we would do that would keep us happy for the rest of our life. Even if it means for us to go in at night at the manufacturing office that we built out ourselves to filter the water, to bag every single one of this water, and to ship everything. And we do everything because we're at this point, it's a very small family business. And we're just happy because we know that we're living our purpose and we know that we're living our passion. And no matter what, that's that's all it really matters, that we're doing our job, we're making a change to humanity as a whole, and we're going to change the course of everyone who touches the product that we make.
Yeah, I think it's really important. You brought up a good point there, Dr. TK. You talk about being a small family business. I think the attention to detail that you put in makes it a massive business. And when I say business, I'm talking about the business of helping people heal. Because I've seen companies that have started off with a lot of care and attention, and then they grow and their product disappears. What they actually created is no longer have that same impact. And I know, like I say, I drink this water. You know, um, what people say, the resonance that they had coming back from it, the energy. I know we were down at the Fit Expo in Los Angeles together, and all the athletic people there were loving it. Um, there's one question I always like to finish with,
Yes.
and that question: what is the one thing you would like the world to know after you're gone to remember the lessons that you've learned?
Love yourself. That's the first thing we always should do, is love yourself. When you love yourself, then you have enough energy and enough superpower in yourself to love the person next to you. And then that create that whole ripple effect that radiate all that love through, because now we have changed everyone to that state of love. And that's our soul. We were born with that, and that's our superpower. And in that state of love, that's where healing take place.
It's brilliant. And again, I never sell on my podcast. This is not for me. This is not a sales platform. This is an education platform. But I hope people reach out and try your water, because it's not just water. There's a lot more to it. And I know that the heart, the soul that you put behind it is real. It's not it's not a bottle that you're going to open up, or obviously a sachet that you're going to open up, but it's much more than that.
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for your time. I want to thank you so much for the life that you've lived, because it truly is inspiring. And I hope people, if they see you, come up and say hi to Dr. TK wherever you meet him, because I'm telling you, he's got the most beautiful spirit, heart, kindness. And I know you go far beyond what anybody should have to, and yet you couldn't be any other way.
Thank you, Dan. I am very grateful for you inviting me, and full gratitude and appreciation for having me on your platform. I appreciate that. And please, everyone, um, help support us, support our business, so that way we can continue to spread the love to humanity.